Hi guys, it's Emily, and today I'm here to bring you my May wrap-up. I read 8 books this month, and I read physical books and ebooks, and I even listened to my very first audiobook. So it was quite an interesting array of books this month. The first book I finished in May was Bring Me a Unicorn by Morrow Lindbergh, and this is her diaries and letters from 1922 to 1928. At the start of the book, we see her as a student at Smith College, and then over the course of the book, she meets and falls in love with Charles Lindbergh, and at the very end, they're engaged. So it's just about their courtship. Um, this was an okay read for me. Morrow Lindbergh always wanted to be a writer, and so you get the impression, like even before she met Charles Lindbergh, that she was going to try to achieve fame in any way she could, because her diaries, like at the very start of this, she's like 17, and yet her diaries are very fancifully written, and sometimes I was like, did a 17-year-old really write this? Really? And I know that, like, obviously education in the 1920s was a lot different than today, but I don't know. Overall, I just got the impression that it wasn't really authentic, and that she had, like, highly edited it and maybe, like, made it so that she sounded more mature than she really was. I don't know, but this was just okay for me. There's like 4 more of her diaries and have been published, but I don't think I'm going to read them because this one was just bare for me. Next, I read 2 ebooks and then my audiobook, all on, well, the Kindle, the ebooks were on my Kindle. I read Cocaine Blues by Kerry Greenwood, and I read that in about a little more than 24 hours. I flew home for Mother's Day to see my parents, and I read it on the way there on the airplane, and I basically had so much time. I nearly finished it in one day, but then I had to go to bed, and I finished it very early the next day. So it was about 18 hours that I spent reading it, maybe, if that. Cocaine Blues is the first novel in the Ferrante Fisher mystery series, and the reason I read it is because I watched the Ferrante Fisher show, and I really enjoyed it, and so I wanted to see at least the first one. I wanted to read at least the first book, and it was just like the show, and so I knew who the murderer was, and I knew how it ended, so it wasn't like a surprise, but it was still interesting to see how Kerry Greenwood's vision was different than the portrayal on TV, and I really enjoyed it. And then I finished the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, and this is the last book in the Sherlock Holmes series, and so I'm so pleased to finally be done. I've been reading these since December, and there's 9 books, and I finished it, yay! So that was quite exciting, and this is just, once again, a collection of Holmes stories, and it was okay, once again. I read one a day, like I've been doing with all my other ones, so it was just a good mystery, old-fashioned mystery series. After that, I finally picked up The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz, and this is oh my gosh, what's the word? Commissioned by the Conan Doyle estate. You can see the sticker, and this is not like an update of the Sherlock Holmes. Like, it's still set in the 1800s, but it was written in present day, in 2011. And this was good. I mean, it's obvious that it's not Conan Doyle, so like, if you go and expecting it to be like an exact replica, you're going to be disappointed. But it was a good mystery story, and I enjoyed it for what it was. It details Holmes and Watson. They have a client who had a stalker, and the stalker winds up dead. And so they're trying to solve who killed the stalker and why he's dead. And then they also have this mysterious organization called the House of Silk that they are investigating. And the cases are connected, but they don't know how until, of course, the very end. So yeah, this was a very good book. And then after that, I read a little follow-up sequel, which is The Three Monarchs by Anthony Horowitz, and I wasn't impressed by this. I paid $2 for it for Kindle, and there's the cover, and it was just 10 pages of a short story, and then like another 20 pages of the second book of the series, which I could have gotten at my library, and the little short story wasn't really unique at all. It was like, it was heavily based on a story that's already existing in the Holmes canon. So yeah, I was not impressed with this, and I would say skip it. Don't spend any money on the short story, especially if you could get the second book at your library, because it's really not worth it. Next, I read The Liars Club by Mary Karr, and I got this because Ashley from Climb the Stacks talked about it on her channel and really highly recommended it, and so I picked it up. And this is a story of, or not a story, it's a memoir of Mary Karr's childhood in the southeast Texas, and then also she lives briefly in Colorado. And this is just a very sad book, y'all. Like, everything bad that could happen to a kid happened to Mary Karr. Like, her parents got divorced, and she was sexually assaulted more than once, and like, her mother was an alcoholic, and you know, her father was absent a lot, and it was just really sad. Like, I was just, oh man, it was just depressing, and like, I had to stop a lot and take breaks because it's just so sad. Like, Mary Karr is known for being the master of memoir, and I understand that because she writes gorgeous sentences, but like, she just, oh man, it's just so hard to read, even though it's so beautifully written. Like, the whole time you're like, how is this woman normal at all? Like, much less making beautiful books out of all the terrible stuff that happened to her. Like, it's just dreadful. Like, the whole time you just feel sick, and you're like, how can parents be so crappy to their kids? Like, why? Why would you? Oh man, it's just so terrible. Like, yeah, I would recommend this if you're interested in like learning about like how to write a memoir per se, but I don't necessarily recommend this if you're just looking for something like to read for fun or for pleasure, because this is neither fun nor pleasurable. Like, this is sad. Like, that's the only word I can think of to describe it. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's bittersweet, I guess I should say. It's bittersweet because, you know, everything that happens is so awful, but she writes such lovely words about them. So yeah, all about the things that happened to her. So yeah, this was just so hard to read. So hard. The final book I read in May was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, which is the first book in the oh man, I'm gonna mess this up so bad, Neapolitan novels. And this details two girls, Lila and Elena. Yeah, Elena and Lila. And they live in Naples, and they live in a poor neighborhood of Naples, and are not very well traveled, and they grow up with a lot of violence, you know, like boys fighting each other in the streets, and also their parents getting into fights with other people, and it's all about like their growing up. And I've had this on my TBR for a long time. My cousin told me about it at Christmas dinner at Christmas 2014, and then I got my own copy for a Secret Santa exchange last December, and so I've had it on my mind for a long time to read it, and I finally got it done, so I'm quite pleased to have it off my TBR. But yeah, this is an interesting book because it's just like a bunch of little stories about things that happened to Lila and Elena, and basically the whole premise is that Elena always feels second best to Lila, no matter what she does. And so she's constantly trying to keep up with Lila. And their lives start out very similarly because they're both poor and they both attend the same school. And, you know, they're very close. But then Elena gets to go on to like high school, but Lila's parents take her out. And so Lila has to work at the family shoe shop. And so there's issues about like her working there, and then like the boyfriends that she has and the boyfriends that Elena has, and then at the end there's a wedding, which you can tell by the cover, and it's just a very interesting look into Naples in the 1950s, and I was really impressed by this book, and I could definitely see myself rereading it, because I feel like once you read it and you like know how it ends, it would be really cool to go back and like see how everything's connected to the ending, and I would be interested in picking up the next 3 books in the series, but I don't necessarily need to read them right away. But yes, this is an interesting book if you enjoy literary fiction or historical fiction, or if you enjoy stories about female friendship or stories about Italy. Like, all of those things hit the mark in this book, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I finished that on the last day of May, at like 10 o'clock or something, because I was trying to get it done so I can include it in this video. So yeah, that's what I read in May. In June, I am planning to read Pride and Prejudice with a buddy read, and then I don't have any other specific reading plans. I started watching the show Veep on HBO, and so I've kind of like, my reading slacked off a bit, which is why I only read 8 books instead of like 10. The other, like I read 10 in both February and March, but this month I only read, or in April, this time I only read 8, so yeah, slacking off a little, but yeah, so I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day if you had the weekend off, and I will talk to y'all later. Have a great June, y'all. Bye!